Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's episode of the podcast, I'm joined by senior on the Villanova women's club hockey team, Sara Barshap. Sara, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. And how's everything going?
It's going really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I sort of want to start off this interview talking about the beginning of your hockey career and kind of working all the way up to where you are today. So, just doing research on yourself, it says that you're from Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Talk about growing up there and how did you start playing hockey?
Yeah, so I actually have a bit of an unorthodox background with hockey. I started skating at a very young age. It was like a very big thing in my family. My dad skated, my cousin played hockey in college. So kind of grew up, it was one of those like must-have things that I learned to do. I actually started out competitively figure skating. So I did that for pretty much my entire life up until high school. And then I really like always thought that I wanted to play hockey. So I transitioned into it in high school. I started working at the rink in my town and just sort of sitting in on the practices that like the club teams would have there and like just started really kind of immersing myself a bit more into hockey as like a player because previously I really was just a fan. I didn't have like a ton of sort of organized hockey experience growing up, but definitely working at the rink and being able to like participate in lessons and kind of all the stuff that I would do there definitely set me up really well and gave me an opportunity to start that.
Did you have a favorite team growing up? Favorite player? I'm assuming it's the Devils, but I could be wrong on that.
Ooh, unfortunately, you are wrong on that. But my favorite team is the Rangers. So been very nervous all day to see the outcome of that. My favorite player growing up is Henrik Lundqvist. I feel like it's maybe a cheesy answer, but I just really loved like how he was a leader on and off the ice. And I think in general, he really inspired like a lot of the way that I approached hockey in terms of seeing it kind of as like a business at the same time as like a sport and a passion and really like his philanthropic approach to it, I thought was always super inspiring. So that's like something I've always carried with me.
He's probably the best dressed player I've ever remembered in the NHL. The guy always came in like the best suits I can think of. It's awesome. That was my favorite part of Lundqvist. His game was the off the ice suit game that he had.
Definitely very strong style.
Well, good luck in Game 7 tonight. As obviously when we're recording this, I'm a big Bruins fan, so I didn't really have a good Game 7 experience last night. But hopefully it works out better for the Rangers.
Thank you.
Now, so when I was doing research on you, I could not find where you played hockey before Villanova. So I'll ask, where did you play hockey before you went to Villanova, and just talk about your experience there.
Definitely. So that is actually not a fault of yours at all. That is because I did not play hockey before I came to Villanova.
Wow.
I really just, I worked, like I said, I worked at the rink. I skate guarded. I ran private lessons for figure skating. I sat in on the ones for hockey just because I wanted to kind of see what it was all about. But yeah, I did not play organized hockey before coming to Villanova. So I, always like joked to my friends that it was kind of like a last minute thing that I never thought I'd be playing hockey in college. It's something I like always dreamed of doing. Like I pretty much have lived the dream the past 4 years, being able to like finally play the sport that I've loved for a really long time. But yeah, no previous experience.
So how do you transition from figure skating to hockey? Because obviously it's people would think that it's a seamless transition, but from my perspective, I feel like it's not just because it's such a different sport. The way you use the ice, the way you skate, obviously this even the skates are different. So was it a tough transition from figure skating to hockey, or was it pretty easy for yourself?
Yeah, so the first time I like physically put on hockey skates was probably like the most embarrassing day of my life. It was, I want to say near the end of my freshman year of high school was the first time I really gave it a shot. And I think definitely having the figure skating experience, it strengthened me in a lot of ways, like as a skater. I think like I was very well balanced, like I moved well, and obviously like figure skating, it's like a very rigid system of training. So obviously in terms of like stamina and overall like athleticism, I think that was definitely an area where I felt stronger in. And then obviously like the other side of hockey, which is like, stick handling and stuff like that is definitely a bit of a shock to the system. It was a lot more like multitasking because in figure skating, I feel like your only instrument is your body. Like it's a performance that you're putting on. And obviously there's a very high level of intricacy to that. But in hockey, you have all of these like other considerations, like the puck, the stick, where you are on the ice, kind of things like that. So it definitely was an adjustment, but it's something that I think I've definitely improved with over time.
Yeah, I feel like I would have a tough time adjusting to figure skating from hockey just because I'm so used to with having a stick in my hand and just doing that sort of multitasking in my brain. And I also I'm not graceful at all, so it'd look weird doing all those like different moves and stuff. What was the best move that you pulled off as a figure skater?
Um, I mean, I think definitely landing an axle is always a great feeling and it looks nice for show. So I would say that probably.
Did you have a favorite figure skater growing up? The only one that I remember was Gracie Gold, just because I remember being in New York when the 2014 Olympics were taking place, and like obviously like we had the TV on and that's all they were talking about. So that's the only figure skater I ever remember growing up.
Yeah, to be honest, like I didn't watch a ton of figure skating.
Yeah.
Definitely some bigger names like around the time of the Olympics, like we would talk about like during our training and stuff, but I've definitely been like a hockey girl through and through since day one, so can definitely speak a bit more to that growing up.
So how did you prepare for your club hockey tryout, I assume? Since you haven't played organized hockey, what was some of the skills that you worked on to try to, I guess, improve your game and get yourself ready for your college hockey experience?
So the funny thing about Villanova, actually, my freshman year, there were no tryouts. We had so after there was four of us in my grade joining freshman year, and with those four, we had 12 people on our roster. It was definitely like a big rebuild year for our program. We had a new coach who's like been my coach for the past 4 years here. It was his first year. It was, my first year, obviously, like on a team. So there was definitely a lot of adjustment. I didn't really know what I was walking into in my first practice, and it's really funny. Looking back at it now, like almost all of the girls that I skate with have like a very competitive and intense like club hockey background. So I definitely wasn't sure if it was for me at first, but my coach said to me, he was like, you know what, we have 12 bodies that we're putting out on the ice, like yours might as well kind of be one of them. And so I really took on that challenge and just day in and day out tried to do things like in our practices and kind of preparing for games to keep up with people around me. And I think having that very competitive environment that I was walking into really set me up well and motivated me to want to be the best as well.
So let's take a few steps back. So obviously, what made you want to go to Villanova as a college when you're going through the whole process in high school? What made that school stand out versus other schools you might have looked at?
Yeah, so I think the main thing was really like the sense of community that I felt on campus. I toured the school twice, and both times, like I really just loved it. Again, like I was telling you kind of before we started talking, I'm in the business school here, which is obviously a very prestigious program, and I was interested in pursuing that for my education. So I definitely knew I wanted that, and I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I wanted to go somewhere where I knew there was like a hockey team I could potentially join. Like I said before, I never thought I would play hockey in college, but just the fact of like knowing that it was there, and even if I wasn't physically playing, like I knew I wanted to get involved with a hockey program, like at any really level. So definitely was a consideration.
Now, you said that you're a business major. Talk about that and what type of classes do you take, especially now as a senior?
Yeah, so I'm an information systems and analytics double major with minors in accounting and artificial intelligence. So I do a lot of data science, analytics. I'm like very passionate about sports analytics. That's kind of what I'm doing full time with my career after graduation. So yeah, just like a lot of classes working with different technologies and a lot of like very math intensive courses.
For sports analytics, what are some things that you like, I guess, do with that? I know that makes me sound dumb, but I don't get it. I'm not a math guy, as most people are aware, but how do you sort of like work on that? Because I've seen it a lot in baseball, but not really in hockey.
Yeah, so that's actually kind of a great point that you just brought up there is growing up for me, one of the ways, like I've always been really kind of passionate about math and stats. And one of the ways that I sort of fostered that love, and this is like the cheesiest thing I'll probably say, is by watching Moneyball, which is I feel like kind of how everyone's story starts.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that movie and like you see all this like sabermetrics, like the sports analytics at play and like just how important it is. So I think for me right now in like the hockey space, there's like, in my opinion at least, there's like kind of a big gap in where hockey is compared to other sports in terms of the use of data and analytics. So for me, looking at that, like that's why I've wanted to grow my skills and kind of pursue a career in that industry because I think that there's a lot of growth and a lot more that can be done with it. So in my day to day, like I work with like a lot of really big data sets, for various sports, just running like different regressions, building out models. And a lot of my classes, like for projects that I'll take on, I'll always opt to use like some kind of relevant data set to sports to sort of see how I can create new insights and kind of grow that connection.
And obviously, data help and statistics help players get better because you can use that information to talk to a player and what they need to work on. Is there like a one thing that there are a lot of people have been having a conversation though, sort of the balance of the human aspect of sports and then also the statistical aspect? Like there's some things that you just can't measure with statistics. I'm sort of curious your perspective on that. If how important is how much should I guess stats be weighed on a player?
I think, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think there's definitely a good balance. And I think a lot of that comes from sort of like the coaching perspective on it. I think one of the key things, like when you're a coach, is understanding like how much stat like your players want to understand about themselves, because on a lot of teams, a lot of athletes, might be a little bit more hesitant. They kind of know their own weaknesses, their own problem areas. They want to assess their performance on the ice through more of like a qualitative assessment, with like different drills and stuff. And then other players, they want to know exactly what their stats are, exactly where the areas for improvement are based on what the numbers are telling them. So I think a lot about it of it is just understanding like what kind of players you're dealing with and what their different needs are. Our team, we've been very lucky that, even since my freshman year, we've gotten a lot more access to our raw data. So now we have a lot more insights about our players. And, some players are really interested in hearing about them, kind of seeing what the numbers look like, seeing what different reports on our competition looks like. And then other players, it kind of just goes over their heads and they're just kind of happy to be there and work on what they have during practice. And, both, there's not really like a right or wrong way to do it. It's more so what works for the person.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember the 2020 World Series where the pitcher got pulled out like in the fifth inning after he was playing well, but the data said that's when they should pull out the pitcher. They don't want him going through the third time in the lineup, and it caused a lot of that debate. So I always find that pretty interesting.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, so talk a little bit more about the club hockey team and the process of joining the team if you're a prospective athlete. So obviously for your class, you guys just joined the team. There wasn't really a trial process. Has that changed in the last 3 years of you being on the team, or is it still sort of the same thing? Like if you just want to play hockey, you can join the team.
So it's definitely changed quite a bit. So when I joined the team, like one of the first thing that I noticed is that, again, like you mentioned, we didn't really have a way of connecting with the team. Like there wasn't really a system laid out for prospective recruits to sort of get in touch with us, learn more about the program. So right when COVID hit, I took on kind of the first of many big projects that I've taken on with the team, which was building us a website with a recruitment portal. So now if you go to our Villanova Women's Ice Hockey website, you'll see there's an entire section just for recruits where you can learn about the team and fill out a form, and that form gets sent directly to our email. Once that happens, we basically enter all of the information that's submitted into the form into a huge database that we have now. We've had for the past 3 years, and we've had players reach out for the fall enrollment class of 2027. So people are like really taking advantage of it, which I think is super awesome. And having this sort of database has really allowed us to build connections with prospective students, and really maintain the conversation about their potential future at Villanova since really the first time that they reach out. So today's actually decision day. So tomorrow there's going to be a round of emails going out to a lot of the girls that we've stayed in touch with to really confirm what our incoming class is going to look like next year. And I think it's really interesting, looking at the business side of what it really is being on a club sport, since we can't have this sort of really rigid, recruiting system that goes years and years in advance. Like a lot of it does depend on what the admission statistics look like for every year. But for us, we've gotten very lucky where we've pulled a lot, from the New England area, from Chicago, from like really big hockey hubs. And we're just trying to continue to grow our relationships with those admissions officers so that we have a lot of girls reaching out in advance, building out their connections, and ultimately growing our freshman class every year.
So let's talk about the on the ice stuff that your team accomplished throughout your past few years. So my first question to you is, what was it? How did you develop? How did your game develop from your freshman year to your senior year, especially since you never played organized hockey in high school? Was it a directly climb regarding your development, or was it sort of like a roller coaster from your freshman year to your sophomore year to your junior year to your senior year, especially with the COVID stuff sort of making it a challenge in the middle of that?
I think there definitely was a lot of growth to it. I think my freshman year, I got really lucky with just like an amazing group of girls that I had joined the team with. It's interesting because a lot of the grades have had like a little bit of adjustment with people coming and leaving, but our sort of core four has stuck together since my freshman year. And it's been really awesome because we have a lot of skill and variety between those girls. So myself, obviously, and then Grace Curran, who is kind of like our star player on the team, was graduating this year. She's a forward. She has an extensive club hockey background, and she was really an amazing mentor for me over the years. I think one of the things I was nervous about when joining the team is that, girls like might kind of look at me differently because I didn't have that background. And with her, especially being, we're both forwards, we're both kind of in the same grade. It wasn't like that at all. She's honestly been an amazing inspiration for me over the past years, and seeing her improvement statistically. Earlier in the season, she actually like hit 100 points for her year over, or for her career at Villanova. So it's been amazing to watch that. So we had her, we had our goalie, Molly McKenna, who is our starting goalie this year, and being able to watch her play evolve also and just learn a lot from her professionalism and kind of all the things that she's learned. She actually played hockey in Cape Cod, so it's like a huge like hockey hub. Just seeing all of the knowledge that she had, especially from her position as a goalie, has been amazing. And then our other senior, Liv Gordon, who is one of our star defensemen, she actually has a kind of a similar background to me, where she had a bit of a break in skating, figure skated at some point, and then obviously grew into this really amazing defenseman who has done so much for our team and has really, she's kind of like the hype man of the group. So just having that kind of core unit in my grade has been really incredible. And so as a freshman, kind of joining the team with them, it was an immediate support system. And then kind of on the flip side of that, a lot of the seniors that I had the privilege of working with my freshman year also just made the process really comfortable. I still stay in touch like with a lot of them, and kind of growing and learning from their hockey experience was really great. And then obviously COVID hit. That was, definitely challenging because I felt like my freshman year I just started to get in the swing of things and kind of like had this really amazing first season. My freshman year, actually, with just 12 girls, we placed second in our like regional playoff. So it was just kind of an amazing feeling to be going off of that. And then, COVID happened, things got shut down. But then, yeah, junior and senior year, we've just experienced like an unbelievable boom. We have over doubled in size. Our roster this year was, I believe, 28 girls. So it's really been amazing to watch. And as a player, again, just getting to meet so many more girls and kind of grow my hockey IQ just by being able to like play with people that honestly probably would never have gotten the opportunity to play with otherwise has definitely helped me grow as a player.
And talk about what it's like playing the ACHA and just the competition that you play in your region.
Yeah, I mean it's extremely competitive. So the ACHA, there's over 60 teams, so it's obviously like a absolutely huge division in women's D2. And then within our specific, we're in the Southeast region, which is like right around 30 teams. I think it was 27, and now they've added a few in the off season, so even bigger next year, which is really crazy. And then we play in the DVCHC, which is, I would argue, one of the most competitive of like the regions or like of the conferences within the ACHA. So it's us, University of Delaware, University of Pennsylvania, the Naval Academy, Loyola University of Maryland, and Rowan University. So if you look at the rankings throughout the year and like which teams went to nationals of the Southeast region, most if not all of them, I think, were from the DVCHC. So it's an incredibly competitive conference to play in, which makes it really fun for us because we know when we have, kind of the circle around those big matchups coming up in our season, like, we met Navy a couple times, Rowan, Delaware, playing those matches is just really exciting and gives everyone something to look forward to. But yeah, in general, I mean, a lot of the girls who play in ACHA D2 have had years of club experience and training, especially, the teams that we play in the ACHA that are from Canada. I mean, those girls kind of grow up living, breathing hockey, and we're just kind of showing them what the New England style looks like. And I think it's really fun and exciting to see that.
What's the best road arena to play in?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say Nationals last year. We played at the Centene Community Ice Center, which is the Blues practice rink,
Oh, that's
and that
cool.
was really, really cool experience.
I don't know why. I feel like Navy probably has a good rink. I've never seen it before, but it's a feeling that I have. Am I accurate about that?
It's pretty solid. I mean, this might be a controversial opinion amongst the DVCHC, but I think Delaware's rink might be a little bit nicer.
Okay.
It's kind of decked out a little more, but it's definitely fun to travel everywhere and kind of see people in different areas.
So obviously, this past year you're heading into your senior season, and you're obviously one of the more experienced and veteran players on the team. So, what type of leadership did you want to bring to the team this past season? Would you say you were more of a vocal leader or lead by example type of player?
I think it's definitely a good mix of both. I mean, I think when you're in a leadership position, especially like mine, so I was one of our captains this year as well as the president of the program. So, kind of being in those two positions, you kind of see both sides of the organization. As captain, I would say it's a bit more of like an on ice role where obviously like the rest of the seniors were also captains and they can definitely contribute a bit more in terms of their hockey experience than I can, but I definitely would try to be, very vocal in like what I've observed as someone who's just watched hockey for a very long time and now is like planning to work kind of in the industry. Um, and then more so as president who kind of sees like the business side of all of it and kind of has a bit more of that interpersonal relationship with like the girls that I play with. I think it's really important just to always be like a support system for them. This year I got really lucky with my vice president, Austin Elvakrog. She's actually going to be the president of the program next year. She was really like the backbone of a lot of what I did with her organizational efforts, the way that she organized the team's logistics. She covered a lot of our transportation and just was really like a huge rock for me throughout the season. So really having that support system and knowing that the other leadership around me really was contributing to a high level made me a lot more confident in my leadership skills as well.
Now, talk about this past season and what did you take away from it?
I mean, this past season, I think, was by far and large more than, what we ever expected it would be. I think, my junior year, right, or even going back to freshman year, like I mentioned before, my freshman year, we were second in playoffs. And then, we hit COVID, but we knew that we really wanted to keep the momentum going. My junior year, we had a huge, boost in numbers. And I think that really propelled us to kind of overcome some of our competition. And then, we made that top five ranking for the first time in the Southeast region. And all of a sudden, the conversation began that we might have a chance at going to nationals. And then we did go to nationals. And then that was a really eye-opening experience that like we can break that ceiling, like we can compete with the best of the best. And so I think a lot of that junior year fueled us to want to really elevate our performance for this past season. So we were completely undefeated in the first half of the season. Our record overall was 15-1-1 for the regular season. So it was just honestly unbelievable. And then we were ranked first in the ACHA rankings for the Southeast region for the entire year, which was really awesome. We beat a lot of sort of the upper level teams in the DVCHC and kind of beyond, which was really exciting. It wasn't something that we were able to do before. So that was really cool. And then overall in nationals, we placed ninth overall in pools. And then of that, we were second in the Southeast and first out of all the DVCHC teams, which was just an incredible feeling. Being in nationals in general this past year was just an awesome accomplishment. And I know next year, this year we had an amazing freshman class. Just to list off a few names, Cameron Brown, she was a rock star. She was at the All-Star game for the DVCHC this year. She really contributed at a really high level, Caitlin Bronzo Garrett. I mean, I could list all of them. All our whole freshman class was just absolutely unbelievable and contributed in, I think, a lot of ways that really propelled us forward. And then our sophomores and juniors, and then obviously the senior leadership, everyone really just came together and was super motivated to really reach new lengths this year. And so, yeah, looking back on it, it was just a really great season.
Yeah, talk a bit more about your nationals experience. I know your team didn't win, but you guys won one out of three games that you played. But what did you just take away from your first experience being there?
Yeah, so I mean, this year it went a lot differently for us than it went last year. We were definitely a lot more prepared, both mentally and also just kind of with our approach to the level of game that we were coming to nationals with. It was really unbelievably exciting to win our first game. It was, I mean, the feeling of excuse me, just being on the ice afterwards. And, everyone was just so excited that we were able to win, obviously against like a very high level team and just in this really competitive environment. I think one of the biggest takeaways was that after our nationals experience my junior year, we felt like there was definitely a lot of questioning of whether Villanova belonged there. We didn't have the best performance my first year. And so I think this past season, we really proved that we do belong there and that we are like a very fierce and competitive player in women's D2. So it was just a great experience, in the terms of the hockey. And then obviously like one of the biggest things about our team that I think really differentiate us is our team culture. Everyone is incredibly supportive and wants to see each other succeed. So celebrating everybody's goals and just really coming together. We had a bunch of team dinners when we were at nationals. We saw like a lot of family, a lot of our alumni from the New England area were able to come down and watch us play. So in general, it was just like a really great couple of days.
Yeah, and well, individually, you talk about how your team made a lot of improvements from your junior and senior year. I'm just curious, individually, what do you think was the biggest improvement that you made to your game?
I would say definitely, I mean, physically, just having more years of hockey experience under my belt. Like, I think my skating has improved a lot. I think, like I mentioned before, my hockey IQ has improved a lot because it's obviously very different to go from just watching the sport to really being there in real time and having to assess where you are on the ice, like the movement of the game and sort of how that's going. I think the biggest thing for me was definitely just overcoming a mental challenge. I think when I first started out, like I had a lot of self-doubt and insecurity in the fact of like, oh, do I like really belong here? Like, am I really going to find success on this team? But I think a lot of that was kind of overcome just by being able to involve myself as much as possible. Like I've always, every year I had a different leadership position on the team, whether it was running our social media or running our recruitment, and obviously this year being president. And then it was a really incredible honor at the end of this season. I was actually awarded the Off Ice MVP award from the ACHA. So I think it really showed me that like you can still contribute to the team at a really high level, even if you don't have like a very extensive background. Like you can always find a way to contribute and leave an impact on the team.
That's awesome. I feel like I'll be bragging about that award like for years to come. When I have kids, like I was the off-season MVP in the ACHA. That's really cool. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, obviously you're graduating this year, so what will you take away from your Villanova hockey career? I know that's sort of a broad question, but I'm just curious. Looking back on it now, there was a lot of highs and lows, but it seems like it was an experience that really benefited you and it's going to be very beneficial after you graduate college.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely sad that it's over, but I think the biggest takeaway is just like the friendships that I made. Um, I really have made my like closest friends on the team. The seniors I grew up with basically at Villanova, so it's just amazing to kind of have those connections. And just want to give a quick shout out to Austin again, my vice president, who really just made an incredible impact, and our wellness director, MK, who's also been like a really big player on the team for and one of my closest friends. So just having them to kind of look back on this experience with and kind of carry those connections with me is definitely important. And then kind of looking towards next step, I'm actually working at FanDuel after graduation as an NHL trader. So I think, my hockey experience here has really set me up well for that because the way that I analyze the game and the way that I can kind of assess what's happening on the ice has definitely been improved by my actual ability to play. So definitely a lot of really awesome takeaways.
May I ask what a fan trader is at FanDuel?
So yeah, so as an NHL trader, basically what I'm going to be doing is setting like a lot of the odds that, if you're somebody who sports bets, you go on your
Oh, okay.
FanDuel app, you open it up, and all the numbers that you see, there's an actual person who's like putting them out there. So I'm going to be basically the person who puts them out there.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Is sports gambling legal in Jersey and Pennsylvania?
Yes, it is.
That's good. That's good because I know it's starting to become legal in different states. Like in Massachusetts, it finally just became legal to do it on your phone, which I know a lot of people were very happy to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of growth, and it's like a very exciting part of the sports industry to be involved with. So I'm definitely very excited to start.